Hello, I'm Mauricio José Schwartz and this is From the Outside. Quick fact, in 2017, 450,000 Central American immigrants crossed Mexico to go into the United States illegally. 450,000. And this figure was the same in the previous years. Around 500,000 people every year crossing Mexico from Central America into the United States. This is not counting Mexican immigrants, only Central American immigrants. Those people are fleeing from hunger, poverty, crime, drug trafficking, horrible governments, lack of opportunities, lack of education, lack of work, lack of any kind of hope for their lives. Between 5,000 and 8,000 of them are now, when I tape this, crossing Mexico to go into the United States, and the whole world has gone crazy. This is a caravan. This is a deadly, worrisome caravan of 8,000 people. You know how many people are 8,000 people? They are much less than the 450,000 that have gone into the United States. Let's say not that the 450,000 didn't make it. Let's say half made it. 225,000 people every year. If that's compared to the 8,000 people in the caravan today, the number is very, very, very small. The caravan that's crossing Mexico today comes from Honduras. Honduras is one of the worst places to be alive on earth today. And in part, it is a responsibility of the United States. And I'll explain why. During the most part of the 20th century, Central America, and Honduras included, was basically ruled by American fruit companies. Standard Fruit, United Fruit, and in the case of Honduras, Cuyamel Fruit. They decided, the government, they decided the economic policies, the social policies, they decided everything in order to further their business. Honduras and all of Central America was also a part of the hot side of the Cold War. Remember that war between the United States and the USSR, where basically no shots were fired between Soviets and Americans? Well, that's because the shots were fired by proxy, by people supported by the United States and the USSR. In the case of Latin America, American policy was wrong and essentially horrid. It supported terrible dictatorships that were, of course, friendly with the United States, but very unfriendly with their own people. So the people were not very happy with those governments, and the USSR was right there trying to help the opposition to bear arms against their governments. So you had United States-backed governments and USSR-backed guerrillas, trained, armed, financed, and taught and indoctrinated by the USSR in order to fight their governments, or so they thought, when actually they were fighting the United States. This was the hot part of the Cold War. Central America was specifically harmed by the Cold War because of the success of the revolution in Nicaragua, which ousted a terrible dictator, Anastasio Somoza Jr. Let us admit that the man who led the revolution against Somoza has become an even worse dictator, who is Daniel Ortega, who right now, as I speak, he's committing genocide against his own people. He has killed more people, more Nicaraguans, than the terrible dictator Anastasio Somoza. Honduras did not have a strong guerrilla. Honduras did not have this problem that was very present in other countries such as El Salvador, Nicaragua, or Guatemala. But just to be on the safe side, the US-backed government went on a rampage in the 70s, killing anyone who was opposed to the government. They didn't have to be communists. They could be Democrats. They could be liberals. They were just uncomfortable and they'd rather be disposed of. After that, Honduras was the base for the Contras, for the counter-revolutionaries financed by Ronald Reagan, sometimes financed by drug trafficking, to fight the triumphant revolution in Nicaragua. So Honduras became this base against Nicaragua, and when the Contras failed, they stayed in Honduras, and they were among the factors that begat the horrible crime situation that Honduras lives today. Honduras, furthermore, in 2008, or since 2008, has been the subject of an experiment by the most extreme libertarians, and libertarians in the sense, in the line of Ayn Rand libertarians, who have basically destroyed whatever opportunities there were in the country. There are small islands of wealth among huge seas of poverty. 63% of Hondurans live in poverty. 20% of Hondurans live in extreme poverty. This 20% is exactly the same number as the extreme poor that you have in Ethiopia. You also have the highest murder rate in the world, especially in cities such as San Pedro Sula and Tegucigalpa, which is the capital of Honduras. Poverty, fear, murder rates, no jobs. What can anyone do? What would you do if you were in this position? If you were holed up in a country that will give you nothing, a government that does not represent you, a place where you have no jobs, a place where you can be killed, a place where you are dirt poor, but you have no expectations of getting out of poverty. You look somewhere else for an opportunity. And Central American people for many years have seen the United States as their land of opportunity. I'm not saying that everything that has happened in Central America is the fault of the United States. And let's be reasonable, this was the fault of the governments of the United States in the past. But I do believe that Americans should bear some of the responsibility, especially since you can't ask for the USSR to take responsibility. The USSR dissolved, and whatever came in its place is not much better at all. So let's go back to the 450,000. No country can accept all immigrants. I know that. We all know this. But every country must accept immigrants, and must accept immigrants on a humanitarian basis. This is a problem that has not been solved by any country in the world. Here in Europe, we have this same problem with immigration from Africa. People that are fleeing from terrible wars, such as that in South Sudan. People that are fleeing from horrible poverty, from lack of opportunities, from no jobs, from having a president that doesn't even live or visit the country, as it happens in Cameroon. And those people come to Europe, and European governments try to stop them. But in Europe, we have discovered something that you have to discover in the United States. You can build a wall. You can build the tallest wall imaginable. You can build a wall with barbed wire. This has been done by Spain in the cities where Spain has a border with Morocco. You can electrify the fences like the Nazis did around their death camps. If people are desperate enough, they will throw themselves against the electrified fences and die there, because they'd rather die than live the life they've been forced to live, and have their children live the life that they're being forced to live. These people are not bad people. They're not criminals. Criminals go into the United States by plane. They don't cross Mexico walking. Criminals from the big gangs, such as MS-13 or the 8th Street Gang, which both were born in the United States, by the way, in LA. They go by car, they go by plane, they don't walk. And there are no ISIS infiltrates. You know, these people may be poor, they may be ignorant, they may be terrified, but they're not stupid. If someone infiltrates their ranks, they will notice. Anyone who doesn't speak Spanish, who they don't know, who has no family there, and who rolls out his little carpet to pray 5 times a day will be noticed. They will know. There is no such thing in the caravan. Why is there a caravan? Let's go back to the 450,000 people that crossed Mexico in 2017. Those people came in small groups. Some of them came alone. Criminals, drug traffickers in Mexico, plus the police in Mexico, have been preying on these innocent immigrants for years. They have been killing, raping, robbing, torturing for the fun of it. These people that cross Mexico because they want to go to the United States and find some hope in their hopeless lives. So we all know that we have strength in numbers. If we go all together, we will not be preyed upon so easily. So that's how the caravan was created. Some people said, let's go. Some other people say, let's go together. Some other people heard they were going together and said, hey, this is a better chance to go now than to go alone and risk ourselves in the journey with the criminals and the police in Mexico. So you have from 5,000 to 8,000 people now trying to go into the United States. 1,600 of them have already asked for political asylum in Mexico, and Mexico has granted them political asylum. You still have many thousands more. And I repeat, no one has solved the problem of immigration. People will go where they feel they have opportunities. You cannot stop them. You can kill them. And they will go hoping to be the ones that are not killed. So even shooting, which was proposed in the United States these past days, is not a solution. There's only one solution. And it's not even that expensive. The only solution is to help those countries to have some sort of economic opportunity, some sort of safety and security for their people. Attacking crime. Attacking crime means attacking drug trafficking, which is a huge problem, and the main consumers are in the United States. This is why the United States must take some responsibility on what is happening. If not because you're morally obligated, if not because it's okay, it's because it's in your own interest. If you invest a little in safety, jobs, stability, opportunities, education and health in these small, poor, desperate countries, people will stop going to your country. Swedes do not make caravans to flee from the horrors of Sweden or Denmark or France or Canada. People create caravans to flee when the situation is absolutely unacceptable, hopeless, profoundly hopeless. So please, stop looking at the caravan as if it were a horrible plot created by the terrible conspiracies, and someone paid these poor people to risk their lives crossing Mexico by foot. Grow up. That's not happening. Think about it. And please stop believing the lies that are being told about these poor, desperate, hungry, sad people who are looking for a better place for their kids, just as you and I would do. And probably, your ancestors did the same. Mine did. My grandfather came from Spain to Mexico because there was nothing to eat in Spain in 1890. So he crossed the sea and never came back. And he went to Mexico and worked like a dog so he could have a future for himself. Probably your ancestors also did it. So if the doors asked once for a caravan to take them away in one of their classic songs. Please don't take away any more dignity from this caravan and from the many caravans that will happen in the future if you don't start looking after yourselves and cutting the problem at its root. Desperation, poverty, hopelessness, fear of dying, and fear of having your children killed, which is, and you must know it, one of the greatest fears a human being can have. Thank you very much.